You people always think the market is a straight line up, like a tree that grows forever. But it's more like the ocean. Sometimes it's as calm as a mirror, and other times it's a raging storm trying to swallow everyone whole. I've been around long enough to know that no new technology or fancy concept is going to fundamentally change human nature. At the end of the day, the rules of this economic game are simple. So simple, they're brutal. But you can't pretend you don't see them. In my lifetime, I've seen a few tides come in and go out. I can lay out this set of rules for you in 3 sentences. The people at the top allocate resources. The people in the middle build systems. The people at the bottom complete tasks. You think this is a career guide? Wrong. This is the most stable underlying logic of how human society has operated from the beginning. If you want to climb the ladder, you have to first accept this logic, not sit around whining about fairness. A lot of young people run up to me and ask how to get successful fast. They think success is a light switch you can just flip on. I always just chuckle and tell them the most important lesson I've ever learned wasn't how to make money, but how to avoid losing what I already had. Life isn't a play about chasing success. It's a long-distance race where the goal is to avoid fatal mistakes. The moment you start fixating on those stories of people getting rich overnight, you've already lost your mindset to greed and impatience. That's the most dangerous gamble of all. The top tier just moves the pieces. They don't do the work. Remember this about the people at the top of the pyramid. They never win by doing the work themselves. Their one and only core competency isn't execution, and it isn't technical mastery. It's the ability to mobilize resources. That is the fundamental difference between them and everyone below. What are resources? Capital, connections, information, a deep understanding of macro policy, the power to set the narrative in an industry. These are all just pieces on their chessboard. Their hands never get dirty. Their fingers are only for signing contracts or making a few key phone calls. You see them living a life of leisure, playing golf, sipping tea, and you think they just got lucky. The truth is that leisure was earned through a network of resources they've spent decades building. People love to romanticize this kind of strategic thinking, as if these folks have some superpower to see the future. But if you peel back the curtain, they're only doing one thing: guiding society's resources to flow in the direction that benefits them most. They aren't the producers. They are the builders of pipelines and the keepers of the floodgates. They don't need to know the chemical composition of every drop of water in the pipe. They just need to decide where the water flows. A top-tier investor doesn't need to master the specific technology of every startup. He doesn't need to know how perfect some programmer's code is. He just needs to judge which way the wind will blow for the next decade. He's not investing in the product itself. He's investing in the trend, the coming wave. If he makes a bad call, it's not because the technology wasn't good enough. It's because his read on the macro world was wrong. A titan of finance doesn't need to stare at a trading screen, getting heartburn over a few cents of fluctuation. He just needs to decide the direction of $10 billion in a few key phone calls. That's scale. What they care about isn't how much they make on a single trade, but whether the process reinforces their control over resources. In their world, the calendar isn't filled with tedious execution. It's filled with board meetings, exclusive forums, or quiet tea sessions with a few other players. You might see that as idle chit-chat, a waste of time. But from their perspective, it's the pinnacle of efficiency. On the surface, it looks like leisure, but in reality, every seemingly casual meeting is a transaction, an exchange, and realignment of resources that will decide the future of an entire industry. Look at those people laughing and talking in the boardroom. They're not just doing business, they're trading chips. You bring your market share to the table, and I'll trade you access to my capital pipeline. You bring your interpretation of policy, and I'll trade you my network of top-tier contacts. It's all unspoken. Nobody ever says the words resource exchange, but that's the essence of the game. In their game, how well or how fast you work has limited value. The real currency is how big of a board you can control and influence. The masterpiece you spent your life creating might just be a single line item on their balance sheet after one of their decisions. It's brutal, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you, because that's the rule. If you want to sit in that seat, you have to learn to look at everything from a bird's eye view. Their mindset is, I don't need to know how to turn $1,000 into 10,000. I just need to know how to safely move 100 billion from one place to another and pocket the difference. The middle, the architects of the machine. The middle tier is the most underrated and overworked group in the entire structure. I'm not talking about some newly promoted junior manager. I'm talking about the system builders who pull in 6 or 7 figures, the ones who can run a whole department or a small company on their own. Most people think they're just highly paid executors. That's dead wrong. Whether they're senior VPs in a big corporation or institutional traders making millions a year, their true function is the same. They are the architects of the system. To survive in that position, individual talent is nowhere near enough. If you're just a lone wolf, you'll only ever be a top-tier performer, which means you're still at the bottom. The real competition in the middle is about one thing: systems thinking. What's a system? It's a framework that runs efficiently and predictably, even when you're not there. It's like owning a restaurant. The people at the bottom are cooking, washing dishes, and serving tables. If you're a world-class chef who insists on cooking every dish yourself, the food is fantastic. But the second you take a day off, the whole restaurant falls apart. You've made yourself the bottleneck of the system. An effective middle-layer person would never let themselves become the most tired, irreplaceable person on the team. Instead, they build a viable investment logic, a risk management process, a set of customer service standards. Then they write it all down and standardize it. They turn every person on their team into a well-oiled gear in that system, while they stand above it, responsible for maintenance and upgrades. From a manager's perspective, you're excellent. You are most efficient and valuable in your current role. If they were to move you, the whole team's execution would suffer. So, for the good of the system, a manager will instinctively keep you right where you are, most effective. The better you do your job, the more stable your position becomes, and the harder it is to get promoted. This is the excellent tool trap. I've seen countless brilliant technical people who have mastered their craft to an insane degree, but spend their entire lives executing someone else's vision. They love the act of solving the problem, but never stop to ask, is this problem even worth solving? They chase perfection in the details while losing sight of the big picture. If you want to move up, you have to learn to pull yourself out of the immediate task at hand. It's a painful process because it requires you to give up the very thing you're best at. You have to start looking at your work from a higher dimension. What's the strategic intent behind this order? Where does my work fit in the overall value chain? Is there a more efficient, more scalable way to get this done? The core of bottom-tier thinking is, how do I do this task well? The core of middle-tier thinking is, how do I design a process so that anyone can do this task well? Making that mental shift is as difficult as being reborn. It requires you to change from the role of a creator to the role of a designer. A creator gets satisfaction from finishing the work with their own hands. A designer gets satisfaction from seeing others efficiently complete the work using their design. The slow is fast. The battle of mindset. I've lived long enough to see that everyone who tries to take a shortcut ends up taking the long way around. The true advancement in life isn't about running faster. It's about leveling up your thinking. A lot of people want to change their fate, so their first instinct is to get another degree or jump to a different company. There's nothing wrong with that. Those are external changes. But if the altitude of your thinking doesn't change, you're just going to end up executing tasks in a new location. You'll be a more expensive tool, but a tool nonetheless. This brings us back to what I said at the beginning, my most profound lesson in life, what I call negative logic. I'm not here to tell you how to make money. I'm here to tell you how not to lose everything. All wealth accumulation comes from the power of compound interest over time, and the power of compounding can be completely wiped out by a single catastrophic mistake. People at the bottom are always chasing a quick fix. They treat their hard work like a lottery ticket, hoping to strike it rich overnight, hoping the next investment will leave everyone else in the dust. They're quick to act and quick to cash out because deep down, they're drowning in insecurity. This impatience is the biggest flaw in their mindset. When you're in a hurry, you get taken advantage of. The people at the top sit around drinking tea because they have time on their side. Time is their greatest ally. They can wait for the market to panic, wait for competitors to make a mistake, wait for the right policy to fall into place. They only need to give a gentle push at the critical moment. If you want to leap from the bottom to the middle, you have to kill the excellent executor inside of you. The transition from bottom to middle is about switching from completing tasks to building systems. What you need to learn isn't how to do one thing faster, but how to make the method for doing that thing replicable, transferable, and scalable. For example, if you're a brilliant trader, you shouldn't just focus on making money yourself. You need to distill your methods into a trading system that is consistently profitable and can be understood and executed by your team. This system needs to be stupid-proof, so that even a fresh college graduate, by strictly following the process, that can achieve 70–80% of your results. Your value shifts from personal ability to standardized capability. That's when you start to have real leverage. Psychology, the root of failure and fear. Why is it that most people, even when they know all these principles, can't put them into practice? This brings me to my third core point. Psychology trumps methodology. All problems in the end are problems of human nature. Humans are wired to hate uncertainty. Why is the bottom tier mindset the most comfortable? Because you just have to follow orders. Your responsibilities are fixed, and your rewards are predictable. You sacrifice massive upside for psychological certainty. For many people, that certainty is more alluring than wealth. The middle tier mindset is the most exhausting. You have to build systems and bear responsibility. The second the system fails, all eyes are on you. You have to deal with enormous internal uncertainty without the massive resources the top has to hedge against risk. This is why people in the middle have the most stress. They're the most likely to have mental health issues. They spend every day on a tightrope, balancing efficiency versus risk, the boss's orders versus the team's morale. The top tier mindset is the most perilous. Their pressure is completely different from the middles. They face macro uncertainty. Every one of their decisions is a bet, often with their entire fortune on the line. They aren't betting on next month's sales orders. They're betting on the nation's trajectory, on industrial shifts, on technological revolutions over the next 5 to 10 years. They must possess a kind of supreme calm to be able to sip their tea without flinching after a $10 billion loss. Their freedom is built on their capacity to endure immense uncertainty. If you can't tolerate that kind of anxiety, you can't move up. If you crave an immediate reward, you'll never be able to make long-term systemic plans. I've seen too many people make a little money in an investment and immediately go buy a car they can't afford or a bigger house, turning paper wealth into illiquid liabilities. With their actions, they're screaming to the world, "I can't handle uncertainty. I need to prove I'm successful right now." It's a sign of inner poverty. True wealth is a confidence that doesn't need to be proven, a calmness that allows you to keep an extremely high level of your assets liquid. Patience isn't just waiting. Patience is the ability to make the right decisions while you're waiting. For most people, what they call patience is just another form of anxiety. From the middle to the top connectors and amplifiers. Now, once you become an excellent middle layer operator, you've mastered systems thinking. But the leap from the middle to the top is a qualitative change. The core of this transition is shifting from managing internal systems to deploying external resources. Your perspective must shift completely from your company's internal efficiency to the vast world outside. The middle looks at profit margins and cost controls on a financial statement. The top looks at the flow and allocation efficiency of resources across the entire landscape. You need to start asking yourself bigger, more aggressive questions. Who has the capital? Who has the cutting-edge information that the public hasn't caught on to yet? Who can influence policy and set the boundaries of the game? What do I have that I can trade for the resources they control? This is no longer simple networking. It's about positioning yourself as a connector and amplifier for critical resources. For example, a middle manager thinks about how to optimize a product's assembly line to cut costs by 10%. A top-tier player thinks about how to use their connections to strike an exclusive partnership with the government, making it impossible for competitors to even enter the market. These two modes of thinking aren't even on the same planet. About efficiency, the other is about monopoly. The world of the top tier, information isn't for reading, it's for trading and controlling. They get access to raw, unprocessed information, the original intent behind a policy, not the polished talking points at a press conference. They use this information asymmetry to deploy their resources. Don't just invest in a hot sector. They're already standing near the finish line before the track has even been fully paved. To get there, you have to let go of your obsession with expertise. When you become a deployer of top-tier resources, your expertise becomes knowing who the real experts are. You don't need to know how to write code. You just need to know at which point in time to give $1 billion to the programming team most likely to change the world. This path is destined to be lonely and difficult. As you climb higher, you'll find fewer and fewer people around you. People at the bottom will think you've betrayed them. People in the middle will think you've lost touch with reality. They'll judge you by your old standards, but you're already fighting on a completely new battlefield. Your pressure is no longer about getting things done, but about doing the right thing. If you make the wrong resource allocation, you're not just losing a month's salary. You're losing massive amounts of capital that could affect the fates of thousands of people. This is why the choices at the top seem few, but each one carries the weight of a mountain. The hard work is the trap, and clarity is the price of admission. Their value isn't in executing one perfect trade. It's in making successful trades repeatable and scalable. The real genius of the middle layer is their ability to turn their own experience, judgment, their connections into a standardized template that others can use. Here's a simple example. A bottom-tier salesman with his silver tongue sells 100 houses in a year. It is great, but he only earns the commission on 100 houses. A middle-tier sales director might not sell a single house himself, but he takes that star salesman's methods, boils them down into a manual called the 7 Steps to Elite Sales, and trains 100 new recruits with it. If each of those 100 recruits sells just 10 houses, the system's output blows the lone wolf out of the water. That's leverage. While you're still trading your own time for a paycheck, they're using the system they built to generate 10 or 100 times the leverage. They're no longer selling time. They're selling structure and efficiency. The struggle and pressure of the middle come from 2 directions. Looking up, they have to take the abstract macro directives from the top and translate them into executable, measurable targets. The top says, we need to capture the Southeast Asian market in 5 years. The middle has to design the steps, set up an office in Singapore, hire this many people. Here's the first-year budget. These are the risk parameters. They are the translators and the chief engineers of execution. Looking down, they have to deal with all the friction and inefficiency within the system. They have to make sure the gears don't rust and the oil never runs out. They carry the biggest burden of execution, but are rarely the ultimate owners of the resources. They are the most exhausted people in the structure because they have to possess the execution skills of the bottom, the system building skills of the middle, and understanding of the top's intent all at once. Many people get stuck in the middle for their entire lives. Why? Because they become too attached to the systems they've built. They fall in love with being the savior, thinking they're the only one who can make it run perfectly. They forget that when you make yourself an indispensable part of the machine, you've already capped your own growth. The top doesn't need another great worker. They need a business model that can be copied and moved. If you are the model, you can't be scaled. The bottom, the excellent tool trap, the biggest problem for people at the bottom, and I'll be blunt, isn't that they don't work hard. On the contrary, it's that all they do is bury their heads and work hard. They are the ones who follow instructions to a T, the most diligent and dependable group. They're like the elite infantry in a war. You point to a hill, they take the hill, and they do it with precision and excellence. Yet, they get the most basic rewards and carry the constant risk of being replaced. Why? Because they've allowed themselves to become a high-quality tool. The logic of the bottom is simple. Receive an order, complete the order. They live for efficiency and execution. The better you are at executing with precision, the more likely you are to be nailed down to the execution layer. It's a vicious cycle. I've heard too many praises for hard work. Yes, hard work is important, but it's not a scarce commodity. The world is full of hardworking people. They wake up early, go to bed late, and do what they're told. But many of them are still struggling just to get by. The hard work is your pass to get into the game at the bottom. It is absolutely not the ticket to get into the top. People at the bottom treat hard work like a religion. They believe that if they're just devout enough, a miracle will happen. They're addicted to physical effort because it's visible, it's quantifiable, and it gives them immediate psychological comfort. You worked overtime. You put in the hours, so you feel like your day was valuable. But the game at the top isn't about who sweats the most. It's about who sees further and whose strategic layout is more brilliant. My advice to you is this: don't use tactical diligence to mask strategic laziness. Many people would rather spend 10 hours solving a problem that is fundamentally flawed in its process than spend 1 hour designing a system that would prevent the problem from ever occurring. They are afraid to stop executing, afraid to think. Because thinking is painful. It forces you to confront your own ignorance and incompetence. Execution, on the other hand, provides a false sense of security. So, what I call clarity is simply this: you must always be aware of which layer you're on, the bottom. Your primary task is not to do your job flawlessly. It is to train yourself to turn personal experience into a process. Start taking notes. Start summarizing your work methods. Start thinking about how an outsider could replicate your success. The moment you start designing templates, you're already knocking on the door of the middle layer, the middle. Your greatest enemy is irreplaceability. You must have the courage to delegate the system you built with your own hands and let others run it. Your energy must shift from internal management to external connection. You can't just focus on whether your department is efficient. You must focus on whether your department can bring the company the scarce resources the top tier needs, be it new capital, new markets, or new policy advantages. If you're at the top, your greatest challenge is a test of morality and human nature. You control the power to move immense resources. You must practice extreme self-discipline and composure. Your greed, your fear, they will be magnified 100-fold and impact the entire system. You must think like a philosopher, strategize like a general, and have the self-control of a monk. The time and compounding, the ultimate secret of life. Finally, let's return to time and compounding. I told you, slow is fast. This isn't some feel-good platitude. It's a mathematical law. You don't need to make 100% returns every year. That's unstable and high risk. You just need to earn a reasonable, sustainable 20% a year and then go 30 years without making a major blunder. The compounding is like a snowball. When it first starts rolling, you can barely see it grow. People at the bottom usually give up at this stage because they don't see an immediate return. They pull out their accumulated wealth to spend it, to prove themselves. But the people at the top understand that the bigger the snowball gets, the more massive the effect of even a tiny increase in speed. You only have $10,000. A 10% return is $1,000. And when you have $10 billion, a 0.1% return is $10 million. This is why people at the top seem to not do much, yet earn astronomical sums. Their base is large enough. Their game has shifted from how do I make money to how do I prevent my capital from shrinking due to my own stupidity. A completely different mindset. Their job is to learn how to move from the earning phase to the stabilizing and growing the base phase as quickly as possible. This requires extreme discipline. It requires a powerful resistance to temptation. When everyone else is out partying, you're studying new system frameworks. When everyone else is chasing the latest hot trend, you're assessing potential risks and the long-term direction of policy. This world will never give you special treatment just because you work hard. There are too many hardworking people. But it will absolutely open a door for you if you understand the rules, if you understand the weaknesses of human nature. The top plays with resources, the middle builds systems, and the bottom grinds out execution. You have to be honest about which layer you're on, and then decide if you want to start the journey up. If you want to climb, you must be prepared to endure the corresponding pressure and anxiety. The amount of uncertainty you're willing to bear is the amount of freedom you'll earn in return. That's life. There are no miracles, only choices and persistence. Stop complaining that the rules are unfair. Learn to use them. The longer you live, the more you'll understand that in the end, what determines victory isn't your IQ. It's your patience and your mental framework. After seeing a few tides come and go, that's the only iron law I can guarantee you.